for joining us for the ICDV special, a program to celebrate the International Children's Day of Broadcasting 2023 on AIT. My name is Binga Obashala, and with me are
Victoria Igono,
Gloria Friday,
and I am Hannah Obashala.
The incidence of gender-based violence is growing rapidly in Nigeria, from forced and early marriages to physical, mental, and sexual assault on women and girls.
According to the UNFPA, 1 in 3 Nigerian women have experienced physical violence by age 15.
Are we going to continue to ignore the plight of children? When would we say enough is enough?
Gender-based violence does not respect class, social status, culture, or religion. In fact, most abusers hide behind cultural and religious practices to commit this violence.
Before we proceed, Abigail is sampling opinion on the theme. Don't go anywhere.
Thank you, Gloria. I'm out here to ask people about gender-based violence and how they think children can be protected. Come with me.
Well, gender-based violence can affect children in many ways, like rape. Now, if a girl gets raped, it scars her for life. Even though she might get over it for some time, there'll be a point in life where she has that flashback. Maybe she talks to a boy, or maybe a boy grabs her in a certain way. She just has that uncertainty. And one of the first solutions I think that can stop gender-based violence is from the family. Maybe people coming to talk to each family about the consequences of these actions, especially the children. Tell the boys about the consequences of raping a girl or even having sex with a girl, because it can scar both of them for life. Because a boy can get raped, a girl can also get raped. And then schools, people should come to schools, educate the children on the rights and wrongs of these things.
Gender-based violence against children is something of concern because this can make or mar them for life. Examples of gender-based violence is rape, and we always tilt towards the girl child when we talk about rape, but guess what? Boys are getting raped as well. A lot of things are happening that they expect them to man up and not talk about it, and we see them lashing out and then having attitudes that they've never had before. So I would say that charity, they say, begins from home. The effort that you put into your girl child, put in as much effort into training the boy child, so that the boy child would grow up to respect and value the other gender as the girl respects and value him as well.
So, gender-based violence doesn't necessarily have to relate to sex and all. It can be like physical beating or like abuse of a girl, and or even a boy itself. But then it's mostly in girls because they feel like we are inferior and they don't feel like we have value. But every child deserves value, and I feel like we should start by noticing us and how much potential girls have and what we can do to change the world and all, because we are very all important.
Children should be protected at all costs from all forms of violence. We should build a safe world where children don't feel intimidation and oppression. I'm Abigail, reporting from ICDP Special.
Welcome back. If you have just tuned in, this is ICDV Special, a program to celebrate the International Children's Day of Broadcasting 2023. And we are with the country representative of UNFPA Nigeria, Ms. Ula Miller. Thank you, ma'am.
There have been several reports of gender-based violence in Nigeria. In what ways are children exposed to GBV?
So children in Nigeria and all over the world are exposed to gender-based violence, which basically means that you're exposed to violence just by virtue of whether you're a boy or a girl. They are exposed in many different ways, in all thinkable ways actually. And that means that, first of all, they are exposed to violence in their homes where they should be safe. They are exposed to violence in school. When they get older, in their universities, in their communities. And the challenge that we have when we talk about that safety that you should have at home is that unfortunately what we also know in Nigeria is that very often the ones who is conducting or doing the violence, especially to the girl child, is a close family member. It's very often the father. It can be physical violence. It can be rape. It has many different shapes and forms. And it's, as I say, very often close family members can be the neighbor, can be the father, the uncle, the brother. And that is also why it's so difficult to stop it. So it's also experienced as you get older if you have access to social media. So today many young girls and boys have access to, I guess you use Facebook and Instagram and what else do you use? You know it better than me. But when you come onto social media, there is a lot of digital sexual violence, which we see increasing also in Nigeria. And that means that some will approach very young girls in order to try and groom them. They will also ask for inappropriate photos, where they convince young girls, for instance, to take off their clothes and take photos like this. So there's many forms of gender-based violence. But what it all comes down to is that we need to be better at teaching young boys and girls that they decide who touch their body and how they're being touched. They decide who posts pictures of them on social media, and they decide how they want to look at social media. But it's a very full picture, and it's very serious, and it's a battle that we must end, and that's why UNFPA has one of our transformative goals to end all forms of gender-based violence. I want to just add one more thing. Another thing that we don't talk about is that early child marriage, forced child marriage, is also considered harmful practice and is allied to gender-based violence. And that's about young girls, very young girls, being married off before they're 18 and ending up also having childbirth. And then it's, of course, female genital mutilation. That's a very mighty word, but basically it means that a girl child is cut in her most intimate parts. And that is violence too, and will affect her throughout her life.
We agree that there are laws such as Violence Against Person Prohibition Act, child rights and other laws that are in place to protect children from being victims of GBV. Despite these laws, it has become an institutional practice in Nigeria that children, especially girls, are being abused on a daily basis. What are the effects on the psychosocial well-being of the child?
So, first of all, let me start by talking a little about that. Another big word, we like to use big words sometimes, the Violence Against People's Appropriations Act, the VAP Act it's called. I just want everyone to understand that that act means that violence against an individual person, regardless of whether you are man or woman, boy or girl, is now prohibited in Nigeria. And that means you have a right to say no. You decide. And if someone does violate that, then we need to take it through to the police and to the health system, and of course all the way to court. And I have to say that the Nigerian government over the last couple of years have done really well to make sure that all the states have also signed up and domesticated this particular act, because that's a really important piece of work for your protection. So, but one of the biggest and maybe most severe consequences that children they suffer, and that also then means that it reinforces this violent behavior, is that the time where this starts, because this starts when you're very small, right? So it impacts on what you think is normal. You grow up thinking that it is perfectly normal that you're being hit, that the teacher in school should give you corporal punishment, or that someone is raping you, that someone is abusing you sexually, that you're being bullied. Bullying in school is also violence, just a different kind of violence, right? But we normalize it. That's part of how we survive. So it becomes normal. And that affects the way we think about ourselves. it affects our ability to learn. It affects our self-esteem, the way we think, are we worthless? Don't we have any value? And it affects, of course, the way that you can assert yourself. And what is most challenging, I think, globally is that it affects the equality between men and women. It is predominantly the girl child that is abused. There are physical violence to the boy child, but the more severe parts, like the cutting I just spoke about earlier, or the early child marriage, the sexual rapes, that is predominantly against young girls. And that is very much driven by the patriarchy. Because we live in a country, in Nigeria, where the inequality is one of the largest in the world, where the men are, per definition, considered superior. So for the girl child, you grow up thinking that you are inferior to the other gender. And that has potentially huge impact on the way that you grow up and how you realize your full potential. It gives also, especially after sexual abuse, it gives children issues around trusting adults. It's about feeling safe when you're with adults. There's issues in socializing and adjusting into your everyday routine and life. And also, of course, communication with others, because very often the adult choose not to listen to you, and I'm deliberately saying choose, because of all the cultural things that's in here. So you end up believing your voice is not important and should not be heard. And then, of course, that understanding that even though you have normalized something, deep inside you know something is not right. So that trust and understanding in your ability to know your own feelings and understand who you are is also impacted. So it is very serious and has huge implications. And maybe just the last thing I wanted to add is that, and it's a different kind of impact, but all these things I just mentioned, they become even worse when we talk about children living with disability. Because very often they already have no voice. They are already stigmatized and pushed out of society. No one really wants them. They're not visible. They're not seen. So the effects it have on someone who is not disabled is multiplied if you're a disabled girl child. And a disabled child is much more likely to be exposed to gender-based violence than a child that is not disabled.
At Playback Nigeria, we have in the past explored the use of community-based participatory intervention, such as applied trauma and improvisation, to help children address gender-based violence. In 2016-2017, we were involved in the He for She campaign in schools within the FCT, where we engaged school children in providing community-based solutions to promote gender equality. What are the creative measures UNFPA is taking to address the root cause of GBV among children?
So this is really one of the key challenges that we are trying to address. And we are working with communities across the country. So I don't know if it's necessarily very creative, but of course it's creative the minute that we engage with someone like Playback Nigeria. There is also, in many of the interventions we have at community level, we actually use little theater groups who will put it out as a theater play, what is going on, and of course what would be the preferred reaction once it's being discovered. So to try and move some of those social norms that drives gender-based violence in this country. We are also, for instance, in Kaduna, we have what we call a husband school. He's also done that up in Bauchi, I think, and in Gombe. And what that is about is engaging with young men and future husbands, talking to them about what does it mean to be a good husband. And part of that is, of course, not resorting to violence. And that also is what does it mean to be a good father. It means you don't have to hit your child to have a perfectly well-functioning child. Actually, If you want your child to succeed, it's more likely to do so if it's not exposed to violence. We have, we work with our safe spaces, where we also work with mothers, of course, but also sometimes, sadly, with very, very young children. We provide psychosocial support, which means that we make sure that children that have decided to speak up not only have the health and police systems to help them, but also give them an opportunity to talk to someone who can help them manage that mental impact that it has had on them, because it does have an impact.
It's still the ICDB special podcast. We will take a break right now for a message by UNFPA.
Now? Useless man. I go show you for this house today.
Why you pour me water? What did I do?
You see they ask me question. You stay for house this night. You stay for house yesterday night. Money for food you no give. House rent you no give. You carry my money go give her shewo. Abi?
Well, I tell you say I get night work too now.
And now your mama waiting for village now you go tell that one. Stupid man. Olori buruku somebody. Idiot. You carry my money go give her.
Yes, men and boys are also at the receiving end of gender-based violence. They have equal right to bodily integrity and safety. Help is available. Reach out and stay safe. Speaking out shows your courage to end violence against men and boys. For more information, please call these numbers.
One in 3 of us will experience violence before the age of 15. 1 in 3 of us will be married off as a child. 1 in 3 of us will experience the mental health consequence of gender-based violence. You can put an end to it. Protect women and girls. End violence against women and girls. I deserve an education. I deserve to be protected. I deserve to be included in decision making. I deserve to lead. I deserve a seat at the table. I also am human. Promote gender equality today. End violence against women and girls. Welcome back. If you have just joined us, it is the ICDB special, and we are with the country representative of UNFPA in Nigeria, Ms. Ula. What are the major challenges and obstacles that hinders your intervention?
So, I wouldn't say it hinders our interventions, but I say that there are obstacles that makes it more challenging to do something about it. And a lot of it is about the social and religious and cultural norms that really promotes gender-based violence. And that is some of the things I spoke about earlier, that it's normalized in society. And for the survivor, it is very much also normalized. And in families, a girl who has been raped cannot talk about it because then she cannot get married. You know, if she gets pregnant, she's been kicked out of school. So there's a lot of silence. It's a silencing culture that aims to preserve the challenges within the family, not even in the community, but really within that little nucleus family. And that is one of the major challenges we have. Another major challenge is, of course, that if you sit in a room with 30 women, the likelihood is that 10 of them are survivors of gender-based violence. And they don't talk about it. Because the system is also not set up to protect them. Very often if they go to police, that abuse and that violence will continue. And there is this belief that a child who has misbehaved at home, well, just don't misbehave, especially a girl child. Do what you're told, slam, you're being hit, and that's normal. That has to change. And what we often see in special courts and family courts is that the judge will tell the woman, you deserve that he beat you, or you deserve that he raped you because you didn't cook for him. So go home, woman, and behave. That is one of the challenges we have. It's all about how it's perceived. Luckily, we are seeing some movements around this. So for instance, you mentioned earlier that you work with the he for she movement. That's about having men standing up for women and saying, of course, we should never, ever, in any shape or form, expose our women and girls for violence. But I think the silencing is really the biggest challenge. And again, that comes to, I think the silencing is about everyone knows that it's shameful. The perpetrator knows this is shameful. And therefore, he also doesn't want to be called out. Access to justice is one of the biggest challenges, because there is the impunity that surrounds gender-based violence. Means that the silencing and the silence culture is accepted. And until we raise our voices and loudly say no, and teach our girls to say no and our boys to say no, we will not change that.
What can children who have been victims of GBV do to heal? How can they address social stigma?
One of the first things is about speaking up. Right? Tell an adult that you trust that this is happening to you. That's where it all starts, right? And report it. Say, this person this morning did this to me. So that we know and start identifying who does it. So break that silence culture. And then, of course, in doing that, so if it is, for instance, where we have a safe space with UNFPA, say it to the mentor in the room. And make sure that you take that advice to take counseling, because that helps you to heal. Because you get some tools that shifts the blame. So one of the biggest challenges you have when you're exposed to this is that you think it's your own fault. And it is never, ever your fault. And you get tools to address that when you go to counseling. But that is really, really important. And then talk to your friends. Because likelihood is if you start talking about it, maybe not the girl next to you, but then the next one would have tried it too. And then all of a sudden, 2 girls are speaking. Maybe also 1 young man is speaking. Yeah. So break that silencing, right? But I think where it starts is that we must, as adults and community members and teachers, we must start by encourage you to speak up. We have to talk about this in schools, even though it's difficult, so that you learn to speak up. We need to tell you where to go when you speak up, right? And then, of course, also pay attention when we have education around gender-based violence in your school. Listen carefully to what are being said, right? And help us raise awareness. Because when we raise awareness, people also start thinking differently about it. So I would say advise, whenever there's community outreaches, for instance, advise your friends to join, to be there, to listen and to learn. Go to the clubs that will be established. If you have a school where there is a club, go to that club, learn and engage, because it all changes, right? So the key in ending gender-based violence is really to stop that cycle of the perpetrator that keeps getting away with it, because the entire community is silent.
We want to say a very big thank you to you for being a guest on our show today, despite your very busy schedule.
You're most welcome. Thank you for having me.
We have been exploring the prevailing gender gender-based violence in Nigeria. A look at the impact on children.
That's all we have for you today, and special thanks to UNFPA Nigeria, AIT Dar Communications PLC, and Playback Nigeria for giving us the opportunity to celebrate the ICDV 2023.
This program has been brought to you by Dar Communication PLC, AIT.
We would love to have you and your children join us for our weekly Family Improve workshops in Abuja. The Family Improvisation Workshop is the best way to bond with members of your family using team building activities and theater games.
Follow us on our social media platform on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Playback Nigeria. You can also call us on 09072808091.
Till we meet again next year, my name is Gloria Friday.
I am Victoria Igon.
I am Hannah Obashola.
And I am Benga Obashala. It has been a pleasure to host you. Thank you.